had done, put in for a pilot, and it was for the floors in all of the buildings. Bottom floor, second floor. And I think we got the bottom floor on floor, what is that? Anyway, somebody walked in the building and took a look at what we were doing, left the building, didn't say a word to us. Must have called Boston, I'm not sure. And then we get a letter saying, you cannot do that simply because that's, simply because there is, think of the word.
Asbestos.
Asbestos. That blew everything out of the water. And I've heard since then, there are many housing authorities that are doing floors and removing and being very careful and so on and so forth, but for some reason, we can't do it.
Well, we have, we have situations where we've, for example, in, I believe it's five, building 5, we just had a vacancy there where we had to put in new cabinets that we had asbestos there. We had to do remediation. In building 2, okay, the vacancy that's there, the same thing. That, that unit was left in absolutely atrocious condition. So that's basically a gut job. But it's going to require, an extensive asbestos remediation, which is what we're doing. Okay, but again, I just want to stress that, we have funds for that. And
When they did the 24 kitchens originally, took it down to the studs. Floor is asbestos. They put this cheap wooden platform over it. The ceiling is asbestos, just like this one. So it's still there.
Right, and it's it'll be there until we remediate. And, we can't, if you're talking about the entire development, that's cost prohibitive to do it all in one fell swoop. But, incrementally, we can get there, depending on how the cap looks year to year and so forth. So that's my intention.
Okay,
And I
All right.
think it's a shame,
yeah, it is, yeah.
it really is.
Excuse me, you talk about reaching out to other units within the town for funding for whatever projects they've got. Talks about the trust fund. I sit on the trust fund board,
The housing.
the housing finance board. And they are recipients of capital expenses from CPC as needed. But so when you talked about going to CPC and others for funding for a particular project, you might remember that they're going to the CPC too, from a different perspective. And of course, if we did something along those lines, I'd like to be involved in just finding out what one hand is doing on the other.
Sure. Yeah.
Isn't the other housing though in Westport is private? And this is public,
Correct.
and that's the issue, I think.
Right. I think that,
As far as getting money here, is because it's public, and the other project is private.
you know, like
I believe.
yeah.
I believe.
I mean, I
That's what I
know
was
that
told.
there's, you know, they have restrictions as far as what you can spend it on, but, for example, you know, you can't buy everybody a new stove, okay, that, I mean, you can't do that, but to improve the buildings themselves, like you can, you know, I know you can do windows, you can, now, the handbars, I think, are, I think that would be a wonderful thing, as, that would not be all that expensive. So if we could get a few $1,000s to do that, I think that makes sense. But what I'll do, I'll update the board on that. I'll reach out to Betty
Okay.
Slip, just have a conversation with
Yeah, I
her.
can give you contact info.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, all right, moving on. Anything under new business? Nothing?
I don't have any new business.
All right, commissioners' comments.
Those basically were the commissioners.
That's right.
Right.
Tenant comments. Yes, sir.
What is the difference between affordable housing and low-income housing? Is Greenwood Terrace affordable or low-income?
Greenwood Terrace is, it's public housing, so it's, you know, it is low-income housing here, okay?
It's not affordable.
No, affordable housing is typically any housing developments that, you know, that get funded by the housing tax credits. And, you know, those typically have a bunch of different funding sources, and you are required to house people that make no more than anywhere from 60% to 80% of the area median income. Here in public housing, it's much different, because the income thresholds to live here are much, much lower. And the housing authority here in Westport, and any housing authority, you know, gets a subsidy from the state of Massachusetts or the federal government, if it's HUD-related, to, you know, fund operations. That's what we have here at, you know, Greenwood Terrace.
Are there any other low-income housing developments in Westport? You said there were affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Where?
Over on, what do they call that?
Novichok?
Yeah,
No control.
That the only one?
that I'm aware of.
All right. I was told by a girl that applied at Novichok. She had monthly income of $3,000, and Novichok told her she would not qualify for an apartment, their one-bedroom apartment, with $3,000 income a month. You don't know.
I would
Oh,
know.
you wouldn't know that, okay.
No, I just, you know, yeah.
The definition of affordable and low income varies. And it's highly possible that she was sort of put in a bucket where she didn't qualify. It's, I don't think this authority has a role to play there.
No, we don't.
Yeah.
Nope, no role at all. Nope.
They have a long waiting list over there. Over 300 people, right? At Novichok?
I don't know that either. Yeah.
Next, I forgot to bring it today, but I'll bring it to our next meeting. The plans, the site plans, it was my project to work on, and I'm very proud of it. Put in 20 units of affordable housing, and they're beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Okay, any other tenant comments? All good with all the tenants here? We're all good with it? I'm only kidding, I'm just kidding. All right, listen, is there a motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, so moved. Okay.